Good morning students. So in 11th chemistry revision already we have discussed two lessons, inorganic chemistry first lesson and physical chemistry first lesson, that sixth lesson gaseous state. So next we can see 11th lesson basic concept of organic chemistry. Okay. So here, so one by one from the first page onwards I am going to write the important questions. So first one, characteristics of organic compounds. So in first page itself some of the, when I am revising, say we are having the book with you, same time you can open the book and say you can see the book also. So in characteristics of organic compounds, so 3 or 4 points are given, isn't it? So first point, that is organic compounds, they are insoluble in water. So they can easily soluble in organic solvents like chloroform or benzene, isn't it? So next, they are highly inflammable, they are having low melting boiling points. So usually, so this organic compounds, they are characterized by a functional group, isn't it? So this functional group is, we know that, so usually this functional group is a characteristics of this organic compounds. So next we have, they can exhibit isomerism, and one more important nature is, that is homologous series. So organic compounds, they are insoluble in water. First question answer, they are soluble in organic solvents. Organic solvents. They are highly inflammable. So they are characterized by functional group. And they can exhibit isomerism. Exhibit isomerism. An important nature, that is homologous series. So question maybe can ask like this also, short notes on homologous series also. So homologous series means it's a series, a set of organic compounds. So each members are differ by a group that is called as CH2 group, isn't it? So common example under this is alkane, alkene and alkyne. So last year to previous year question, example for homologous series and its formula also they have asked. So alkane general formula CnH2n plus 2. Alkene general formula CnH2n. Alkyne general formula CnH2n minus 2. Okay. So example also, alkane, methane, ethane, propane, butane, these are all examples. Alkene, ethene, propene, butene, benzene. So alkyne, ethane, propane, butane, these are all examples for this. Okay. So these are related with this characteristics of organic compound. So next question you have to study classification of organic compounds. So characteristics of organic compounds, homologous series. So next you have to study classification of organic compound. So afterwards it is given naming of organic compounds, isn't it? So this naming of organic compound, so you have to study first IUPAC naming of organic compounds. So first, so we have to select, I will write the question first. So first question is, consider this compound, okay. So here, so we have to number the carbon Same way, the selection of carbon chain must be lengthy. Okay. So afterwards, we have to number the carbon. So we can select here when you are seeing this long chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, isn't it? So but when you consider this, maybe this way 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This way also we can select. So any other way we can select. So possible here also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So anyhow, so first we have to select is the longest chain of carbon we have to select. So afterwards we have to number the carbon. Okay. So here, so number of carbon we can do like this. So this chain, carbon chain we have selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Isn't it? So how many carbons are there? 5 carbon. So next we have to write the substituents. So this is one substituent and this is another substituent, isn't it? So how we can give the number? So here second position and third position. Second position the substituent CH3 is methyl. Third position the substituent is ethyl, isn't it? So when you are writing the substituents, so depending upon the alphabetical order we have to write. So here M, this substituent starts with M. So here this substituent starts with E. So students, which we have to select first? This one, isn't it? So that is 3-ethyl. So next 2-methyl. Afterwards consider this chain. So how many carbons are there? 5 carbons are there. So methane, ethane, propane, butane and pentane, isn't it? So this, there is no double bond, only single bond. So the name of this compound is 3-ethyl 2-methyl pentane. Okay. So next compound, it is CH3, CH, CHO, CH2, CH3. So we can see the IUPAC naming of this compound. So here when you have seen functional group is there, CHO, aldehyde, isn't it? So when you are giving in previous case, so only hydrocarbon system is there. So we did not mind about this, and no other functional group is there. But here when you are seeing a functional group is there, so we have to give the preference to the functional group. So the least number, the functional group should get the least number. So this way when you are selecting carbon, we are getting 4, but we are not giving number for this functional group, isn't it? The which way we can select? So this one way from here to here, or this is the way. So when you are selecting this way, so it should get the smallest number 1, 2, 3. So that's how we have to select 1, 2, 3. So but when you choose this chain 1, 2, 3, 4, we are getting 4 number. The lengthy carbon chain. So in this side, isn't it? So we can select this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So next substituent. The second position we are having methyl as a substituent. So first we have to mention the substituent first. 2-methyl. Okay. So how many carbon is there? 4 carbon. That is butane. So aldehyde is a functional group. So it should be ends with Al. So it is butanol. Okay. So next one more. For each set I am going to write one example. Third one is CH3, CH, CH2, CH3. Okay. So see here. So when you consider this compound, so we can give the number. So from this end to that end, or from there to here. So total number of carbon 4, isn't it? So this substituent will get, when you are giving the number from this side to that side, so this substituent will get the least number. So we have to select this way, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. So second question we are having the substitute, what is it? So it is cyclopropyl. Okay. So here it is a open chain, this is a closed chain. So you have to write propyl, 3 carbon atoms are there. So it is cyclopropyl. In which position it is there? Second position. So 2 cyclopropyl. 4 carbon atoms are there, so it is butane. So next time. So in benzene ring, so if 2 bonds are there, isn't it? So we have to do the number from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons are there. So 2 double bonds are there. 6 carbon means it is hexa, isn't it? So it's a cyclic compound. So cyclo, 6 carbon it is hexa. How many double bonds are there? 2 double bonds. So it is diene. Cyclohexadiene. The position we have to write, isn't it? So it is in first position and fourth position. So here you have to mention the number also. That is cyclo-1,4-diene. So when you are evaluate yourself, they can ask the name of the compound. From this you have to write the structure also. So see here, if the question is asked, write the formula for metadichlorobenzene. Metadichlorobenzene. So how you used to write meta? So it's a position which is related with this. If it is a benzene, so usually, so this position it is para and this position it is, this position it is mentioned as ortho position, and here it is meta position. Okay. So this is para position, ortho position and meta position. Question is metadichlorobenzene, isn't it? So here in meta position chlorobenzene. So metadichlorobenzene means the chlorine substituent must be in meta position. So here. So this is the meta structure of this metadichlorobenzene. Okay. So next we can see one of the nitrogen compound. So this name of this compound is, so 2 methyl groups are attached with the nitrogen, isn't it? So we have to write N, N, dimethyl. So 2 methyl groups are there. So N, N, dimethyl benzene. So in book exercise compounds are given. So along with this question, so you have to study the other formula and name of the compound also. So next topic we can study, that is structural representation of organic compounds. So organic compounds can be represented by Lewis structure, dash structure, bond line structure and dot structure, isn't it? So what are the structures? That is, so usually if it is a compound, maybe C3H8O is the molecular formula of ethanol, isn't it? So this formula of a particular compound can be represented. Structure of the compound is given by, the first one is Lewis structure. So we can write the Lewis structure. Next, bond line structure. Bond line structure of this compound can be write like this. 3 carbon atoms are there. So 8 hydrogen atom. 1. Carbon is having the valency 4. Next here, here and here. So this is the bond line structure of this molecular formula C3H8 group. So next is dash structure, condensed structure. So condensed form, this together we can write as CH3. This together we can write as CH2. This we can write as CH2OH. So last one is dash structure. The same compound we can write like this. CH3. One corner that means for one carbon. So next corner for next carbon. This corner for the next carbon. Next OH. Have you understand? So these are the three ways of structure of compound. Glue structure, bond line structure, the condensed structure, dash structure. So next we can see representation of organic compounds. So usually organic compounds can be three-dimensional organic compounds can be represented in two dimension by using Fischer projection, Newman projection, Saha's formula. Okay. So Fischer projection, Saha's projection, Saha's formula. Three-dimensional molecule can be represented in two dimensions by using these formulas. Third one is Newman formula. So in Fischer projection, so when you consider tartaric acid, HOH or OH, D form and L form we can write. I have written. So this horizontal substituents and vertical substituents are there, isn't it? So vertical substituents point towards the observer and horizontal substituents are there far away from the observer. Okay. So this is the representation for tartaric acid. That is Fischer projection formula. So next Saha's formula means, so diagonally a line will be there. So after the same compound we can write in Saha's formula by this COOH, OH, H. So afterwards this, it is in the top position, isn't it? That is COOH, HOH. Okay. So but actually eclipsed form and staggered form is there. So it is not in the eclipsed form. To change this form into eclipsed form, so we have to rotate this carbon. So the COOH will be here. When you rotate this COOH, H I have written here, isn't it? So this H will be here and OH in this position, it will move towards this. So this is the eclipsed form of Saha's for this molecule. The same molecule we can represent in Newman projection also. In Newman projection, two circles, we have two carbon atoms, they are connected by a single bond, sigma bond, isn't it? So these two carbon atoms are mentioned as two circles. So one circle is at the front and one circle is at the back. Okay. So maybe consider like this, COOH, this from the Fischer projection, and this OH and this hydrogen atom. The next one we can write like this, COOH. So this carbon atom that we have mentioned as a circle, it is at the front, and one more circle it is at the back, that's one more carbon atom. So next is H. Okay. So these are the ways of representation of organic compound, that is Fischer projection, Saha's formula and Newman formula. Is it clear? So we have seen how three-dimensional organic compounds can be represented in two dimensions by Fischer projection, Saha's formula and Newman formula. So next we can see isomerism in organic compounds. So this isomerism is classified into, that is, constitutional isomers and stereoisomers. Isomerism you have to study. So this constitutional isomers are further classified into isomerism, that is constitutional isomers or classified into first one chain isomerism. In chain isomerism, two compounds, they should have the same molecular formula, but the chain of carbon length will be varies. Okay, so that's chain isomerism. We can say the example as CH3, CH2, CH2, CH3, CH3, CH3. When you consider these two compounds, okay, so number of carbon 4, here also number of carbon 4, they are having the same hydrogen 3, total 10, isn't it? So here also 10. So number of carbon, they are having the same molecular formula, but differ in the carbon chain, means it is chain isomerism. So next is position isomerism. So position isomerism means the two compounds, they should have the same molecular formula, but differ in the position of the functional group. For example, CH3, CH2, CH2OH. So near to the first carbon, functional group OH is attached. So in the next compound, when you are seeing CH3, CHOH, CH3. 1, 2, 3. So here when you are seeing, so along with the second carbon, this functional group is attached, isn't it? So when you are seeing the molecular formula of both compounds, they are same, but they differ only in the position of functional group, means, so these we can say as that is position isomerism. Is it clear, students? So next we can see functional isomerism. From the word we can explain, okay. So functional isomerism means, so two compounds, they should have the same molecular formula, only differ in the functional group. Example is CH3, CH2OH. Ethanol, functional group is OH. I can write with the same molecular formula CH3OCH3, that is dimethyl ether. So both are having 2 carbon, 6 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. The difference is here ether is the functional group, here alcohol is the functional group. So this is the example for functional isomerism. So next is metamerism. When you consider CH3, CH2O, CH2, CH3, CH3O, CH2, CH2, CH3. When you consider these two compounds, both are having same molecular formula, same ether functional group. What's the difference? Number of the alkyl groups attached with the oxygen atom. Here one ethyl group, right hand side one ethyl group. But here left hand side one methyl group, right hand side you are having a propyl group, isn't it? So like this, if alkyl atoms attached with the functional groups are different, means, so these are example for the metamerism. Okay. So one more isomerism, that is tautomerism. The best example is maybe HC triple bond and hydrogen cyanide. So the heteroatoms is moved to tautomerism. So we can write N triple bond C. Okay. So like this, if the position of heteroatom is differ from its original position, so this is the example for the tautomerism. Is it clear? So next we can see geometrical isomerism. So in geometrical isomerism is otherwise called as cis-trans isomerism. So next isomerism you have to study is geometrical isomerism. So in geometrical isomerism, consider this example Z, C. Here also H, CH3. One more example I am writing C double bond C. Here H, CH3. And here CH3, H. So when you consider these two compounds, so here CH3 same groups, they lie on the same side, isn't it? So here the second compound, same groups, they lie on the opposite side. So if the same groups lie on same side, it is called as cis isomer. If same groups lie on opposite side, it is called as trans isomer. Question you can expect like this. They can give two compounds. From this you have to identify which compound is this and which compound is trans. So how you have to find this? If the same groups lie on the same side, it is cis isomer. If the same groups lie on opposite side, it is called as trans isomer. So next isomerism we have to study is optical isomerism. Optical isomerism. Okay. So in optical isomerism, so first we have to understand what is plane polarized light. Okay. So we know that our ordinary sunlight can be diffracted in all direction. It can propagate in all direction, isn't it? So when it is passed through a Nicol prism, so here it may be a prism that is called as Nicol prism. When it is passed over this Nicol prism, so afterwards, so you are getting a light. So this light, it should propagate only in one direction. It may be in clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction. Have you understand? So this light is called as now plane polarized light. This is ordinary sunlight. When it is passed over a Nicol prism, so afterwards the light can be moved, otherwise propagated only in one direction, that is maybe clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction. If the plane polarized light is when it is passed to a particular optically active substance, if the light is rotated towards clockwise direction, means we can say the particular optically active substance is d-isomer. If the plane polarized light is maybe rotated toward the anti-clockwise direction, we can say the optically active substance is L-isomer. Okay. So see here, so d-isomer and L-isomer. What is d-isomer? Plane polarized light if it is rotated to clockwise direction, that is plus direction, so that we can say as d-isomer. If it is L-isomer, it should be rotated to the anti-clockwise direction. So in short, how we can define enantiomers, means from this optical isomerism, so we have to define these definitions we have to study. So next one is enantiomers. So in enantiomers, so here enantiomers are optically active substance. Okay, they can rotate the plane polarized light in clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction. Such compounds, optically active substance, are called as enantiomers. Students, how we can define enantiomers? Enantiomers are optically active substance. So they can rotate the plane polarized light in clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction, isn't it? So such substances are called as enantiomers. So if a particular substance is, we can call it as enantiomers, means, so we have termed that optically active substance, isn't it? So what are the conditions for this enantiomerism, otherwise optical activity is, so one condition is condition for optical activity. The first condition is the molecule should be non-superimposable on its mirror image. When you consider a compound like this, it may be here H or here OH, here Cl and here F. When you take the mirror image, here H, here OH and here Cl and F. So this is the object and this is the mirror image, isn't it? So when you take this mirror image over this object, so it is not superimposable, isn't it? So this is the first condition for the optical activity. Object and the mirror image, it should not be, otherwise it is not superimposable on its mirror image. So second condition is, so the molecule the carbon should be chiral. So here when you are seeing, so this carbon is called as asymmetric carbon. The condition, second condition is the molecule should contain at least one asymmetric carbon. So what's the meaning of asymmetric carbon? So carbon, if it is attached with different atoms, 4 different atoms or groups, means that carbon is called as asymmetric carbon. When you are seeing this carbon, these 4 atoms or groups are different. So we can say this carbon is asymmetric carbon. So these are the 2 conditions for the optical activity. Okay. So this also you have to study. Optical isomerism and enantiomers also you have to study. So next one is, after finishing this optical isomerism, next one that we can see detection of elements. Okay. So in your book it is given detection of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur and halogens, phosphorus also given. Okay. So in book from this you have to study all the questions, but one of the questions I am going to explain, that is detection of nitrogen. Okay. So if organic compound, if it is having the nitrogen as one of the element, so it will form sodium cyanide. Along with carbon and sodium, it is forming the nitrogen. It is having the capacity to form sodium cyanide. Okay. So now it is having nitrogen. We are going to whether this compound is having nitrogen or not. So now this sodium cyanide compound is on reacted with ferrous sulfate or FeOH twice. That's FeOH twice can be prepared from the ferrous sulfate. Okay. So this FeOH twice, when it is reacted together, it will form Na2FeCN6. That is sodium ferrocyanide. Okay. So this sodium ferrocyanide, again it is treated with hydrochloric acid or ferric ion, that is ferric chloride. It can have the tendency to form Fe4FeCN6, that is ferric ferrocyanide. Okay. So the color of this ferric ferrocyanide is Prussian blue or green precipitate. Prussian blue or green precipitate. So from this color you can identify nitrogen is present in that particular compound. Have you understand? So only I am explaining detection of elements under that detection of nitrogen. Okay. So sulfur, if it is along with the nitrogen, if sulfur is present, the color of the precipitate will be blood red color. So from the color change we can detect the particular element. Okay. Once again I am repeating. So if nitrogen is present as the element, it will combine with sodium, carbon and nitrogen, it is forming sodium cyanide. So this is the nitrogen that is present with our organic compound. So this organic compound on reacted with the ferric ion, it is forming sodium ferrocyanide. So afterwards when it is treated with ferric chloride, along with ferric ion we are adding hydrochloric acid also. So it is forming ferric ferrocyanide. So the color of the solution is Prussian blue or green precipitate. So from this color we can identify nitrogen is present in that organic compound. Maybe along with nitrogen, if sulfur is present, the color of the solution is blood red color. So from this we can identify nitrogen or sulfur. This is detection of elements. Okay. So detection of elements also you have to study, especially detection of nitrogen. So next topic that is given estimation of elements, isn't it? So estimation of elements, estimation of carbon, hydrogen, estimation of phosphorus, sulfur, nitrogen and one more thing. So these are the phosphorus also given, isn't it? So estimation of elements. So here we are going to study, so carbon, hydrogen estimation, next sulfur, phosphorus, nitrogen, these all estimation is given. So you have to study one by one. In this class I am going to discuss about the estimation of sulfur. Okay. So here the sulfur containing organic compound should be taken in a tube, that is a small tube that is called as Harry's tube. So in this tube the sulfur containing organic compound is taken. So afterwards the tube is, along with that tube we are adding fuming nitric acid. Okay. So when fuming nitric acid is added along with this organic compound, and it is kept in an iron tube and it is heated 5 hours. Okay. So after 5 hours the tube is taken out. The tube which is containing organic compound is taken out. So after taking out, it should be broken and cooled and filter that solution. Okay. So this filtrate is having our substance sulfur, isn't it? So along when you are heating along with this organic compound, fuming nitric acid we have added, and same time we have to add barium chloride solution also. Okay. So fuming nitric acid and barium chloride, when it is reacted with the sulfur, organic compound containing sulfur, it will react and it will be forming a precipitate of barium sulfate. So from this barium sulfate precipitate, we can find out the weight of the sulfur in this barium sulfate. Okay. So calculation is, we can do like this: weight of the organic compound, calculation for this estimation of sulfur. Okay. So weight of organic compound is taken as W gram. Weight of organic compound is taken as W gram. Okay. So our weight of the precipitate, that is X gram. Okay. So if 32 gram of the weight of sulfur is 32 gram of sulfur present in 233 gram of barium sulfate. Weight of barium sulfate is 233 gram. So from this we can calculate the percentage of sulfur. Percentage of sulfur is equal to 32 divided by 233 into X by W into 100. Okay. So weight of the organic compound, that is 32 divided by 233 into X by W. But percentage of sulfur, how we can calculate? 32 divided by 233 into X by W into 100. This value will give the percentage of sulfur. Is it clear? So we have seen only percentage of how to calculate, otherwise how to estimate sulfur. Estimation of sulfur we have seen. Okay. How we can estimate sulfur? So here sulfur containing organic compound is taken in Coriolis tube, and along with in this tube we are adding fuming nitric acid, and this tube is sealed and it is taken in an iron tube for it is heated for 5 hours. So afterwards we have to take the tube outside, then it is broken, and along with that we have to add barium chloride solution. So this is filtered. This filtrate is now taken weight, that is X gram. So weight of the organic compound, that is W gram. So 32 gram of sulfur is present in 233 gram of barium sulfate. So from this weight of this barium can be calculated, weight of sulfur can be calculated by the formula 32 divided by 233 into X by W. So percentage of sulfur can be calculated by 32 divided by 233 into X by W into 100. So the same way we can calculate the percentage of carbon, hydrogen and halogens also we can find out, and write the formula. Percentage of carbon is equal to so carbon atomic mass is 12. So in estimation we can see carbon in the form of carbon dioxide. So its molar mass is 44 into weight of the precipitate divided by weight of organic compound into 100. So this value will give the percentage of carbon. The same way we can calculate the percentage of hydrogen also. So hydrogen we can calculate like this. So hydrogen, it is 2 atomic mass divided by, so molar mass of hydrogen is present as water molecule. So 2 by 18 into maybe B by W into 100. The same way we can estimate phosphorus, we can estimate nitrogen, so we can estimate halogens also. Okay, so halogens also for chlorine, bromine, iodine. So these calculations also given. So the final formula you have to learn, because so if a problem is asked related with this, using this formula you can write. So this values you have to study. So this A they used to give us a precipitate. So this amount maybe 0.2 gram of barium sulfate precipitate. For sulfur estimation we have seen precipitate is barium sulfate, isn't it? So that is X. So this 0.4 gram of barium sulfate precipitate. So weight of the organic compound is 0.5. So only we have to substitute this value and this value, isn't it? So into 100 it will give the percentage of that particular metal or particular element. So estimation over. So next we have to see one more, that is purification of organic compound. So if it is a solid substance, usually it is purified by sublimation or crystallization, fractional crystallization methods. So usually liquids are purified by this distillation, fractional distillation, azeotropic distillation, steam distillation. These are the methods for liquids, isn't it? So here I am going to explain the topic, that is chromatography. So you have to study detection, estimation of carbon, you have to study nitrogen. Here nitrogen, sulfur also you have to study. Okay. So carbon, hydrogen, next sulfur you have to study, nitrogen, halogen, sulfur, halogens also you have to study. So last one, purification of organic compounds. So here chromatography is important, and distillation methods also important. Okay, so distillation maybe steam distillation, azeotropic distillation. So these also you have to study. Okay, some of the important questions I have given from the 11th lesson. So along with this question, some additional question also you can study. So we can see chromatography techniques. So it's a technique for usually. So here two phases we are using. Types of chromatography: column chromatography, gas liquid chromatography, thin layer chromatography. So paper chromatography, gas liquid chromatography, it is given, isn't it? So I am going to explain column chromatography. So in column chromatography, two phases we are using. One is stationary phase, the other one is liquid moving phase. Column chromatography, stationary phase, the other one is moving phase. So here usually stationary phase must be solid or it may be a liquid. Here moving phase must be liquid or gas. Okay. So two phases we are using in column chromatography. One is stationary phase, the other one is moving phase. Stationary phase is solid or liquid, moving phase is liquid or gas. Okay. So see here, in stationary phase, solid or liquid we are using. So here a long glass column, glass tube. So it is having a stop at the end, isn't it? So usually, so first these columns should be fixed by here at the lower end. cotton or wool should be kept there. Okay. So afterwards, what we have to do is, we have to pack this column with stationary phase. Mostly magnesium oxide or alumina will be used as a stationary phase. So after packing this stationary phase, so we are going to add the liquid which should be purified. Okay, the particular solid substance should be taken in the aqueous form. So afterwards, that is along with the eluent, that solvent solution that is called as eluent. So along with the eluent, so this moving phase, the liquid which should be purified should be poured over this long column. Okay. So depending upon the absorption, so this our liquids can be separated. So the liquid which should be easily absorbed will be at the upper end. So the others will be depending upon the absorption capacity. They will be absorbed at particular distance. From this we can separate the like this as a column. They will depending upon the absorption nature. So if the particular solid, if it is having the absorption capacity is more, means it will be absorbed at the first, that is in upper part. So the other liquids, if they are having absorption nature the lower than that of this, means they will be absorbed at a different distance as a column. So these will be using this stopcock. So we can separate this liquid easily. Okay. So this is the method that is called as chromatography. That is called chromatography. In thin layer chromatography or paper chromatography, we are using, if it is thin layer chromatography, so as a form of paper it is taken. So along with the eluent, this liquids also move. So from the distance moved by the particular solvent and our organic compound. So from this distance we can find out the factor that is called as RF factor. Distance moved by the substance, moved by the substance from the baseline divided by the distance moved by the solvent from the baseline. So from this formula, so we can calculate the retention factors. Okay. So in 11th lesson, so you have to concentrate on these topics. So first we have seen characteristics of organic compounds. So afterwards we have seen IUPAC naming of organic compounds. So next, isomerism, isn't it? So isomerism, so we have seen constitutional isomers and geometrical isomerism, that's stereoisomerism. So constitutional isomers are classified into chain isomerism, position isomerism, functional isomerism, tautomerism. Then we have seen one more isomerism, metamerism. So when you are studying the isomerism, along with the definition, you have to study the examples also. So after completing that isomerism, that constitutional isomerism, we have seen geometrical isomerism, that stereoisomerism. So it's classified into geometrical and optical isomerism. So geometrical isomerism, it's otherwise called as cis-trans isomerism, isn't it? In carbon-carbon double bond. So we have seen the example cis and trans. If same groups lie on same side, it is called as cis isomer. If same group lie on opposite side, it is called as trans isomer. So next we have seen optical isomerism. So in optical isomerism, so we have seen what is, first we have to know what is optical activity and what are the conditions for optical activity. So which type of light? Optical isomerism, it is related with light, that is plane polarized light. So plane polarized light means a light can move only in clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction. If the light, if it is passes to clockwise direction, it is called as D isomer. If it is in opposite direction, that is called as L isomer. So under that we have seen enantiomers. What's the definition for enantiomers? So enantiomers are optically active substance. They can have the tendency to rotate maybe plane polarized light into clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction. So such compounds are called as enantiomers. So next we have seen what are the conditions for optical activity. So two conditions are there. One condition is the molecule should be non-superimposable on its mirror image. Second condition is the molecule should contain 4 different atoms or group. That the compound should contain asymmetric carbon. What is asymmetric carbon? If the carbon having 4 different atoms or group means that is called as asymmetric carbon. So next two conditions we have seen. So next is this optical isomerism over, enantiomers over. Next we have seen detection of elements. So detection of nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon. So this halogens also given. So in that I have explained nitrogen and sulfur, isn't it? So if the organic compound containing nitrogen is in the form of sodium cyanide, this sodium cyanide is treated with a maybe ferric ion or in the form of ferrous sulfate. It is giving sodium ferrocyanide. This sodium ferrocyanide all treated with the hydrochloric acid or ferric chloride, it is forming ferric ferrocyanide. That color is Prussian blue or green precipitate. So this color of this precipitate is important. So from this color we can determine, otherwise we can find that nitrogen is present in the particular compound, organic compound. So maybe along with the nitrogen, sulfur also present means, so the color of the precipitate, that is color of the solution is blood red color. So blood red color indicates the presence of sulfur in the organic compound. Okay. Next we have seen estimation of elements. So in estimation, carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, halogens estimations also given. So if they are asked to estimate hydrogen, carbon and oxygen weight is given, means what you have to do is maybe carbon and hydrogen weight is given, you have to find out, estimate the element. One of the questions they have asked, that is, how will you estimate the amount of oxygen present in an organic compound? So how we can estimate the amount of oxygen in an organic compound is, so amount of carbon plus hydrogen should be taken, you have to add a value. So this should be subtracted from 100, it will give the value of amount of oxygen. Amount of oxygen. Is it clear? So how we can find the amount of oxygen? So amount of carbon and hydrogen should be 100. So this value should be subtracted from 100. This will give the amount of oxygen. Okay. For carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, halogens, we are having so many methods. It is given explanation. So you have to study this. So one of them is sulfur. That is, we can estimate using a method. So from the barium sulfate precipitate, we can calculate percentage of sulfur. So percentage of sulfur can be calculated by the formula. Percentage of sulfur is calculated by the formula percentage of sulfur. It is weight of sulfur is 32 divided by 233 into X by W into 100. Okay. So percentage of carbon, hydrogen also we can estimate, isn't it? So carbon, hydrogen estimation, carbon 12 divided by 44 into X by W into 100. If it is hydrogen, 2 by 18 into X by W into 100. So here if it is asked as a problem, this X or Y may be weight of the precipitate. So this W is the weight of the organic compound. So if these two values are substituted, means if it is asked as a problem, you can attend the problem. Okay. So next we have seen that is purification. Organic compounds can be purified by methods, that is solids. If it is a solid organic compound, it can be purified by the method crystallization, fractional crystallization or sublimation method. So sublimation, in book back it is given. So that when solid substance, when it is heated above the melting point of that particular metal, then when it is above the melting point of the organic compound, then the organic compound is getting evaporated. So remaining impurities, they will not be evaporated at the particular temperature. Then impurities can be removed. Then afterwards these vapors or condense and it will be collected as a pulp, maybe naphthalene. These are the example for this sublimation, purification of solids by sublimation method. So next we have seen liquids can be purified by distillation method, fractional distillation method, steam distillation method, azeotropic distillation method, distillation under reduced pressure. So each method also with the example you have to study. So next we can see chromatography. Chromatography is a technique, it is based on partition, isn't it? So here types of chromatography, that is column chromatography, thin layer chromatography, gas liquid chromatography, paper chromatography. So here explanation it is given for column chromatography. So in column chromatography, a long glass tube. So in long glass tube at the end a stop cock is there. So here first this column should be packed with the stationary phase, isn't it? So stationary phase may be alumina. So after packing this column, so the substance which should be purified should be poured along with this column. So depending upon the adsorption nature, so the substance can be separated as column. So afterwards using this top cock we can remove one by one the substance after purification. Okay, usually, so if the substance is having adsorption power more, so it should be adsorbed at the upper part. So afterwards the remaining will be adsorbed at different layers. From this we can collect it. Okay. So these are the questions you have to study. So characteristics of organic compounds. So next you have to study classification of organic compounds. Homologous series you have to study. Next IUPAC names of the compounds you have to study. Maybe they can give the compounds. So afterwards you have to write the formula of the compound. The reverse also, they can give the name of the organic compound. So from this you have to write the structure of that particular organic compound. So next isomerism, definition or example they can ask for geometrical isomerism, optical isomerism and enantiomers definition. Next detection of nitrogen, estimation of elements, chromatography. Here detection of, I have explained only nitrogen, but you have to study for other elements also. For estimation also, you have to study these questions also. Next, chromatography, distillation and steam distillation. Okay. So see, so percentage of sulfur 32 divided by 233 into x by w. The same way you can attend, otherwise we can calculate, we can estimate the other elements also. Carbon, hydrogen. So these type of elements also we can estimate. Okay. So study all these questions. So along with that, what are the questions already you have studied, that also you have to finish.